Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something darker than usual. And I mean dark. Rain whispers against your window. The power hums low. Maybe a single, faulty bulb flickers in the distance. Tonight, we're talking about the rules I was given when I took the job as the caretaker at Blackwood Manor, a place that makes the Overlook Hotel look like a children's playground. If you think your job is tough, try mopping up ancient wine spills left by ghosts. Seriously, if you hear knocking behind you right now, just ignore it. It's probably just the wind, or maybe the previous caretaker trying to pass on one more rule. So, before you settle in, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you're brave enough to handle what's coming. Tell me where you are and what time it is down in the comments. We're all alone in the dark together. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe keep one candle burning. And let's begin tonight's haunting together. Section 1. You pull your old pickup truck onto a winding, unpaved road that looks like it hasn't seen a car in years. For close to 10 miles, all you see are endless trees and rolling hills. The city, with its noise and its rush, is finally far behind you, leaving only the sound of your own breathing and the quiet crunch of gravel. You'd spent your life feeling 5 steps behind everything, so the silence here is exactly what you needed. Then, tucked behind towering hedges and massive iron gates, you see it, Blackwood Manor, or what they call Blackwood Academy. It's not quite a school yet, just the bare bones of one, a grand, forbidding stone structure with towering spires. They were hiring janitor, groundskeeper, handyman, the whatever the hell needs doing kind of job. You took it. A man meets you at the gate. He's in his 40s, maybe older, and carries the perpetual stiffness of someone who feels much older than his age. His name is Noah, but he tells you the kids here call him Mr. No. He figured the name fit after a while. He's been working here for close to a decade, and he pays the bills, keeps busy. He looks you over, his gaze heavy and assessing. He mentions that life here is different. It's quiet, true, but the quiet has a weight to it, a heaviness. You can already feel it in your bones. Mr. No steps closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, the soft, eerie tone of someone sharing a secret they wish they didn't know. You're new here. First summer, right? He asks. He tells you you're lucky you ran into him. He's going to show you around. But he warns you that if you want to make it through the summer without any incidents, you need to follow the rules. All of them. And he insists, do not ask why. Some things, he says, are better left alone. He quickly dismisses the idea that this place is like the old Hartwell mansion a few miles down the road, the one they do the ghost tour in for a quick buck. That place, he says, is all for show. This academy is the real thing. Mr. No points across the courtyard toward the main entrance, the one they call the admin building, the landing pad. He explains that this is where everything starts, the heart of the place. You can see the grand staircase inside, splitting halfway up. And right at the foot of that staircase, you vaguely make out a massive object. He stops you before you take another step. This, he says, is your first rule. It's the easiest one to follow, but the one you absolutely have to do every single day. When you look at the staircase, you are forced to confront the history of this place. This place is old, real old. 200 years, some say. You might be wondering about real-world haunts, places that linger in the corners. In many European estates, especially those over 200 years old, there's a persistent folklore of genius loci, the protective spirit of a place. Blackwood feels like it has won, a heavy, watchful presence. An eerie fact: research into infrasound has shown that low-frequency vibrations, often in old stone buildings like this, can cause feelings of dread, anxiety, and even the sensation of being watched, making you think a building is alive. It's about respect, Mr. No whispers, his eyes darting toward the building. Don't ask why, just do it. Every time you enter the admin building, you will stop and acknowledge the master. You want to ask, is this real? Is this some kind of hazing ritual? That's the skeptical phrase bubbling up. Researchers still argue whether the entire concept of haunted houses is purely psychological. Maybe it's just the old building settling. Maybe it's the dust, but Mr. No's eyes hold genuine fear. You step toward the entrance, ready for the next instruction, ready to learn who this master is. Feeling the weight of the stone walls around you, you step into the admin building, and the air immediately changes. It's vast and cold, with stone walls and wooden beams so thick you feel dwarfed. The gas lamps flicker, casting moving shadows that make everything feel off balance. Your eyes go immediately to the grand staircase, and then to the thing at the bottom, the painting. It is massive, almost as tall as Mr. No. The man in the portrait stares out, stiff and proud, wearing clothes that haven't been in fashion for centuries, a dark coat, gold buttons, and a frilly cravat. His face is sharp, his lips thin, his jaw clenched, as if the artist captured him mid-argument. But it's the eyes that freeze you, pale gray, almost silver, and they truly do seem to follow you. You tell yourself it's just a trick of the light, but even in the flickering lamplight, you feel them on you, watching. Mr. No explains that this is the old master, the founder of the school. No one remembers his real name. The records are gone, maybe lost in the fire, maybe hidden. They call him the inventor because he was obsessed, a genius who could take the world apart and put it back together. But that obsession came with a price. The rule is simple. Always say hello to the inventor. Every time you walk through this hall, you stop, look him in his pale gray eyes, and you nod, a simple greeting. When evening comes and the sun dips low, you make sure to say good evening. No exceptions. He warns you that the old master never really left. You hear stories from staff and students, glimpses of a figure walking the empty corridors late at night, or slow, heavy footsteps pacing the upper floors when no one should be there. This rule is made out of respect, or maybe fear. Mr. No tells you that he's seen kids forget. They walk right past the painting, thinking the whole thing is a joke. And Hartwell doesn't forget. It starts small, a trip on the stairs when there's nothing there, books going missing and showing up days later. But sometimes it's worse. A gas lamp explodes inches from their head. You might call that bad luck. But here, Mr. No says this place is alive. The Academy breathes, remembers, and pays attention. This constant, watchful presence reminds you of the old evil eye superstition, particularly in Mediterranean folklore, where a malicious gaze can bring misfortune or injury. The inventor's eyes, those pale gray slivers, feel exactly like that. An active, malevolent gaze that needs to be appeased. An eerie fact. Studies on the pareidolia phenomenon, seeing faces in random objects, suggest that when a person is under stress or in a state of hypervigilance, their brain is far more likely to perceive a painting's eyes as following them, even when the light is steady. Here, the light is never steady. You want to investigate the light, perhaps find the source of the flickering and the perceived movement. But the skeptical voice is fading fast. You realize that Mr. No has followed this ritual for 10 years. He stands there, nods, and says hello. He knows you are not the only one living here. You stand before the portrait, feeling the silver eyes on you. You nod once. Hello, you whisper. The room feels instantly less cold. You wonder what the true price of forgetting would be. Mr. No guides you through the towering spires and narrow, maze-like hallways. The school smells like history and dust, a dry, musty scent that clings to your clothes. He tells you about his duties, fixing broken pipes, cleaning the endless halls, patching the leaky roof. Summers are the busiest, when the rich families send their kids for the cultured program. He explains that they call him Mr. No because he has plenty of rules, and he sticks to them. He points out that the rules here are different. They aren't just to keep kids out of trouble. They're to keep them safe. The kids, of course, don't understand. Mr. No, can we go to the cellar? Absolutely not. Mr. No, can we go to the old mansion? No. He sees the curiosity in their eyes, the wondering why he's so strict. He stops by a staircase leading to the student quarters. Now, the second rule, he says, his voice now lower, losing the humorous edge entirely. It's just as simple as the first. Never leave your room between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. He explains that this hour range is the Academy's true witching hour. You might feel tired after a long day of running around the grounds and fixing the endless cracks in the brickwork. So staying put sounds easy, but Mr. No knows better. Hartwell, he explains, has a way of getting inside your head, making even the best behaved kids curious, especially at night. After 10 p.m., he says, looking up the dark stairwell, the Academy doesn't belong to you anymore. That's when it belongs to the others. He calls them other residents. But he has no simple explanation for what they are. only guesses that it has to do with old ideas, things people believed before science made them feel safe. He asks if you've heard of the witching hour. It's an ancient belief passed down for generations that certain hours of the night are thinner, like the wall between our world and something else is worn down, and things slip through. At Blackwood, that veil lifts between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. An eerie fact: sleep paralysis, a temporary inability to move or speak upon waking or falling asleep, is often accompanied by terrifying hallucinations of figures in the room, particularly during the early hours of the morning, roughly aligning with the 3 a.m. witching hour folklore. The brain, when transitioning between sleep stages, seems to be especially vulnerable to perception lapses. You want to ask, is this actually paranormal activity? Or are these just scare tactics used to enforce curfew? The investigative side of your mind rebels, suggesting the school's isolation and lack of modern technology contributes to the psychological effect. But then you remember the oppressive weight of the building. Mr. No's warning is clear. If you break this rule, if you step into the hall, two things might happen. He leans in, the gas lamp casting long shadows behind him. He's about to tell you the first consequence, the first thing you might encounter if you leave your room after 10 p.m. Mr. No explains, is the ballroom. It's on the first floor, at the far east end of the building. He describes it as a grand room, the kind made for royalty, with high ceilings, chandeliers, and marble floors cracked with age. But at night, the heavy wooden doors are locked with iron handles that won't budge. He knows that curiosity will drive some students there. They creep through the dark, silent halls, thinking they're clever. They press their ears to the massive doors. That's when they hear it. Music old-fashioned, like the kind from a royal ball, strings and soft piano. Faint but clear laughter, voices humming, the clink of glasses, and the sound of shoes sliding across the marble floor. It sounds completely alive, like a party is raging just beyond the door. Even though everyone knows it's been locked for decades, some kids run back to their rooms, the smart ones. But others, the ones filled with that dangerous Blackwood curiosity, they try the handle, they pound on the door, they try to pry it open. Mr. No warns you that the doors never open, and if you're foolish enough to look through the keyhole, you'll see nothing but darkness. A hollow, empty room, but the evidence remains. Mr. No tells you he comes down every day before breakfast, and like clockwork, there's a spill on the stone floor just outside the doors, deep red, soaking into the cracks. Wine, thick, almost syrupy. He mops it up in silence, every single morning, knowing he'll be back the next day to do the same thing. This perpetual, repeated cleaning ritual for an impossible mess makes you think of the folklore of Tydrak, a Scottish term for a relentless task that must be done over and over, often assigned by a mischievous spirit, like Sisyphus or the cleaning of the Augean stables, only for the mess to reappear instantly, an eerie fact. Researchers studying the phantom limb syndrome have found that the brain can actively generate sensory experiences, like the feeling of hearing music or laughter, in the complete absence of external stimuli, particularly in areas associated with strong emotional memory. The ballroom, an area of former grandeur, might trigger this collective auditory hallucination. Mr. No looks tired, almost defeated, when he talks about the wine. You want to approach this logically. Could the stain be caused by a recurring condensation issue from a poorly sealed upper story pipe? And the sound is simply wind whistling through the vents. That skeptical thought is immediately drowned by the memory of the gas lamps flickering without reason, the ballroom party, the music, the laughter. It's only one of the things that happens after 10 p.m. Mr. No takes a breath, his eyes wide. The second possibility, he assures you, is worse. Much worse. Mr. No lowers his voice again, drawing you close to the wall. He tells you about the second, far more unsettling thing that happens after 10 p.m. if you break the curfew. Sometimes doors appear where they shouldn't. You'll know them instantly. Tall, narrow doors painted deep red. The color is the worst part, a red that looks wet, like the paint hasn't quite finished drying. They show up in places that never had doors before, at the end of a blank hallway, next to a supply closet. Sometimes they even materialize right outside a student's chamber. If you see one, don't open it. That is the absolute rule. He knows, he says, that they tempt you. You'll see them standing out like a fresh wound against the academy's old stone, and that human curiosity will kick in. What's behind it? I just want to see. But nothing good, Mr. No insists, ever comes out of those doors. He's caught students with red paint on their hands before. It stains deep into the skin, doesn't wash off easily. Days later, there'll still be a smear across their palm, a mark that tells him exactly what they did. And he knows what they saw. They never speak of it directly, but they come back changed, quieter, their eyes sunken like they haven't slept in days. Some lock themselves in their rooms, refusing to leave even during the day. A few transfer out, unable to make it through the summer. Others, well, they stay, but they're not really here anymore. Blackwood, he warns, sees everything. It knows when you break the rules, and it punishes curiosity, this idea of a door appearing in an unexpected place, leading to a hidden or dangerous space, is a recurring trope in many real-world haunted locations, specifically related to liminal spaces, thresholds that exist between two states. Folklore often describes these spaces like mirrors, wells, or spontaneously appearing doors as being weak points where the barrier between worlds can be crossed. An eerie fact, psychologists studying the effect of prolonged isolation on individuals, especially in quiet, low-lit environments like Blackwood, have noted a tendency toward dissociation and the creation of vivid internal narratives that can manifest as physical hallucinations possible explanation for the changed students. You analyze the situation. Could the red paint be a residue from an industrial cleaning solvent used for the mold in the lower halls? And the doors are just visual focus points for tired, stressed students. The rational part of your brain searches for a maintenance explanation. But the wet, fresh look of the paint mister, no described, gives you a cold shiver. So, when 10 p.m. rolls around, you must stay in your chamber, lock the door, close the curtains, and don't even think about stepping into the hall. Because once Blackwood stops being yours for the night, it becomes theirs. And they do not like to be disturbed. There's something else, Mr. No adds, almost as an afterthought. If you ever break the second rule, if you step out during those witching hours, you might run into her. They call her Lady, Mr. No continues, his voice barely audible over the distant hum of the gas lamps, or sometimes just the woman, like she doesn't need a real name anymore. Everyone at Blackwood knows who you're talking about. She stays mostly on the 5th floor. That part of the academy has been off limits since before Mr. No started working here. It's completely barricaded, doors nailed shut, furniture piled up. Even the living staff avoid it. But the lady doesn't stay put. Sometimes, late at night, she comes down. Mr. No tells you he saw her once, from a distance. He was making his rare after-hours rounds and saw her standing at the landing, right in front of the inventor's portrait. She was still silent, just staring up at the painting, waiting, maybe, or just remembering. Then she was gone. Everyone says the lady is the old master's fiancé, the one who died with him in the fire that burned down the original mansion. But the stories change. Some say she escaped, married someone else, and started a new life, only to get stuck here when death finally caught up. Trapped inside these walls, paying for whatever she did all those years ago. What she did changes depending on who you ask. One version says she betrayed the master, passing his brilliant, strange blueprints to a secret lover. When he found out, he spiraled into madness, ending in the fire. Another, darker version says she was into the occult. While the master invented, she performed rituals in hidden rooms, blurring the line between life and death. That, Mr. No believes, is why Blackwood feels alive in a way it shouldn't. No one knows the true story. But the rule, he stresses, remains the same. Never look at her face. If you ever see her, and may God help you if you do, you must keep your eyes down. Look only at her feet. That is the only way to stay safe. This idea of a spirit that must not be looked upon recalls the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, where Orpheus loses his love by turning back to look at her. As they cross the threshold from the underworld, it is a fundamental superstition. The glance is often the final, fatal breach of the barrier. An eerie fact, the concept of the burning woman, or lady in white, is found across diverse global folklore, from La Llorona in Latin America to the Banshee in Ireland. Psychologically, researchers believe this figure often represents unresolved grief or guilt, manifesting as a perpetually suffering, fiery entity. The fire that consumed the West Wing seems to have preserved her suffering here. You feel a flicker of disbelief, the old skeptical voice trying to reassert itself. Mr. No, are you sure this isn't just a very long, very elaborate ghost story to keep students in bed? But Mr. No's fear is too real. He tells you she was beautiful once, but the fire stripped that away, leaving only the cruelty and ugliness that had always been beneath the surface. Now, she is something twisted, and you absolutely do not want to see it. Mr. No describes the encounters with the lady in chilling detail. Students who snuck out, thinking they could handle the dark curiosity of Blackwood, wandered too far. Then she appeared, sometimes standing still at the end of a hallway, waiting. Other times, she is right behind you, so close you can hear the soft, impossible sound of water dripping onto the floor. Her feet are bare, always wet. Mr. No stresses. That's how you'll know it's her. The footprints, he tells you he has cleaned them up before. Damp marks leading down the hallways, where there is no earthly reason for water to be. Sometimes the water is tinged red, a dark smear in the middle of the prints, as if she has been walking through something much thicker than water. You realize that the red wine Mr. No mops up outside the ballroom might not be the only thing staining the floors. The rule is simple and absolute. If you look at her feet, she might let you go. You'll feel her pale, invisible gaze watching you, waiting for you to make the mistake of lifting your head. But if you keep your eyes down, staring only at those wet footprints, she might pass you by. But if you look at her face, Mr. No shakes his head. The ones who have looked never come back the same. He's seen the aftermath, burn marks on their arms, raw and angry, like they'd been caught in a fire. Their rooms filled with the stench of smoke. Even though nothing was lit, the footprints, the wet, trailing marks, are a direct manifestation of a real-world superstition known as trace fear or trail ghosts, found particularly in maritime or damp environments, where the ghost's passage is marked by a physical trail of water, sand, or blood, making their presence undeniable, an eerie fact. Olfactory hallucinations, the perception of smells that are not actually present, are a recognized symptom of temporal lobe seizures, often triggered by stress or lack of sleep. The phantom smell of smoke or burning flesh is a classic example of this, suggesting the students who see the lady might be experiencing a shared, stress-induced physiological event. You try to find a rationalization. Could the dampness be caused by a burst pipe high up on the 5th floor that the staff cannot access because it's barricaded? And the smell of smoke is mold spore release. But the recurring nature, the specific pattern of the marks, and the synchronized injuries on the student's arms make you doubt this scientific explanation. So if you ever see her at the end of the hall, standing there, watching, don't stop. Don't look. Turn around walk back to your room, and go to bed. Whatever her ending was, Mr. No warns, it's best not to find out. You wonder how many staff members have left due to these rules. Mr. No leads you now to another wing of the academy, one that most people simply pretend doesn't exist. It's the old servants' quarters, where the school's original staff lived centuries ago. You'd think the place would have crumbled to dust after all this time, but it hasn't. It's still standing, sealed off behind a locked iron gate on the east side. It's clearly trying to be forgotten, but it isn't forgotten. The servants' wing is starkly different from the rest of the grand, towering academy. The rooms here are simple, small, and narrow. They contain bare wooden beds, rusted wash basins, and cracked floors. There are no gas lamps or decorations, just rows of identical, cramped quarters. Every door has a small square window cut into it, just big enough to peek through, Mr. No notes, if you are foolish enough to try. And here is the visual signature of this wing. All the doors are red, bright, deep red, looking freshly painted, though no living person has been down here for decades. They stretch down the hall in both directions, a never-ending row of crimson doors. Sometimes, if you get too close to the locked gate, you'll hear them. Soft footsteps moving back and forth behind the closed doors. Slow, repetitive pacing, like someone has been trapped in a 4x4 room for too long and can't sit still anymore. Other times, they're singing. Low, broken voices humming old songs no one remembers. It drifts through the cracks in the wood, an eerie, faint echo in the hallway. Mr. No explains that there is never anyone living in there. The spirits here are different from the others, the ones in the main halls, the ballroom, the chapel. Those spirits get to walk the halls, to linger in the spaces they once knew. The servants, they don't get that freedom. They are stuck, trapped behind those red doors, pacing, singing, and waiting. And they are consumed by a powerful emotion, anger. Angry that they are still here. Angry that no one helped them. Angry that others get to move freely while they remain locked away, forgotten. This chilling concept of confined, angry spirits mirrors the real-world folklore of fettered ghosts, spirits, who are not just attached to a place, but are actively bound or chained there due to the circumstances of their death or a curse, unable to move past a boundary, an eerie fact. Researchers have found that individuals placed in sensory deprivation tanks often report auditory hallucinations, including distant music or voices. The servants' wing, dark, isolated, and highly acoustically reflective, may be inducing this trapped sound phenomenon in visitors. You inspect the iron gate, your skeptical mind fighting the mounting dread. Is there a natural ventilation effect that causes the floorboards to creak and produce rhythmic sounds, which your mind then interprets as footsteps and singing? The question is valid, but the overwhelming sense of palpable anger emanating from the hallway is not. That's why the rule is simple. Mr. No repeats, never go to the servants' wing. Don't walk down that hallway. Don't go near the red doors. And whatever you do next, you must never forget the most crucial rule concerning the servant's wing, Mr. No warns, comes down to one single dangerous action. Whatever you do, don't knock. He knows Blackwood has a way of feeding the flames of curiosity. It will pull you toward the places you shouldn't go. You'll tell yourself, just a quick look. I won't go inside. I just want to see. That is exactly how Blackwood works. It feeds on that need to know, and if you knock, Mr. No says, they will knock back. It won't be loud at first, just a soft, hollow tap from the other side of the red door. But then there will be another, and another. Closer each time, you will hear the soft scrape of fingernails against the wood, and you will feel the weight of something pressing against the door, desperate to get out. He points to the nearest red door visible through the iron gate. Some of them, he notes, have handprints on them. Faint smudges in the deep red paint, like someone on the inside has been pressing their palms flat against it, waiting for someone foolish enough to open it. The servants, he reiterates, are trapped here, paying a price. They are serving a sentence for whatever they did, bound to these tiny rooms. They remain pacing, singing, and waiting for someone like you to set them free. But that freedom would come at your own expense. This desperate desire for release and the retaliatory knocking reminds you of the classic folklore of the poltergeist, specifically its manifestation as loud, unexplained percussive sounds designed to attract attention and terrify the living occupants. The intensity escalating with each knock is a common feature. An eerie fact. The psychological study of induced panic shows that rhythmic, unexpected sounds like tapping or knocking, when heard in isolation, often trigger the fight or flight response more quickly than a visual threat. As the brain struggles to locate the source and nature of the unseen entity, you try to logically argue. Could the sequential knocking be caused by rapid temperature fluctuations in the sealed wing, causing the wood to expand and contract suddenly, mimicking a pattern of sound? You could run a simple physics experiment. The idea of fingernails scraping the wood and the handprints on the paint suggest a level of agency that cold science cannot explain. You must remember the true nature of this place. Blackwood is alive. All the spirits here are paying a price, and you don't want to get involved in their sentence. You turn away from the iron gate, the deep red of the doors still searing into your mind. You think about the wet footprints of the lady and wonder if the two reds are connected. Finally, Mr. No leads you away from the academy's main stone structure, around a path half hidden by overgrown ivy. Here, sitting quietly behind the main building, is the chapel. It's small and simple, a contrast to the grand, ornate towers of the academy. Its stone walls are cracked and worn by time, having stood there as long as Blackwood itself, maybe longer. Inside, the atmosphere is strangely still. The pews are dusty, the altar chipped. It feels like no one has sat there in years. The stained glass windows are thick with dirt and grime, barely letting in any light. But Mr. No points out a strange phenomenon. Sometimes, on certain nights, the windows glow faintly from within. No one knows why. He tells you that the chapel is unique. It's one of the few places in Blackwood where the dead and the living almost meet. It's a middle ground, a place where you can feel the other residents nearby, but they won't hurt you. If you follow the final rule, the rule is based entirely on a simple physical gesture. If you enter the chapel and the candles are lit, you must leave a coin on the altar before you go. It doesn't matter what kind of coin. A penny, a dime, anything will do. It's a small gesture, he emphasizes, a sign of respect. Most of the spirits trapped at Blackwood don't get much of that. They are bound to this place, lingering, because they have nowhere else to go. Mr. No explains that this simple offering is crucial. They were trapped here, some violently, others slowly over time. They are here because of things none of us fully understand. This coin, this gesture, is an acknowledgement. The act of leaving a coin or offering in a sacred space for the spirits of the dead is a tradition found in many cultures, often referred to as a Karen's obol, the coin for the ferryman of the dead, or simply a votive offering. It is a literal exchange, a payment for safe passage, or a tribute to the unseen owners of the space. An eerie fact: studies of religious architecture reveal that chapels and ancient churches were deliberately designed with specific acoustic properties, sometimes including resonators hidden in the walls, which can amplify low-frequency sounds, giving the illusion of voices or whispers, making the air feel still, and the dead feel nearby. You analyze the chapel's glow. Could the faint internal light be caused by bioluminescent mold growth behind the glass, or an extremely old, faulty electrical short that occasionally sparks, rather than a supernatural phenomenon? This seems like a reasonable investigative path. But Mr. No cuts off your thought process. He looks you straight in the eye. If you don't leave the coin, he warns, if you walk out without giving them something in return, that's when things go very wrong. He tells you exactly what happens next. If you forget to leave the coin, Mr. No says, his voice now a ragged whisper, something will follow you home. You won't notice it immediately, but late one night, you will wake up and see the proof. Muddy footprints. They won't just be on the floor, they'll be on the walls. Worse still, they might be on the ceiling. The absolute, most crucial part of this consequence is the warning. Whatever you do, don't look underneath your bed. He explains that if you're lucky, you'll only get a not-so-bad spirit. But if you're unlucky, and at Blackwood, you're always unlucky, you'll get something akin to a demon, and for a few nights, or perhaps for a few years, it will live directly under your bed. This entity will find you wherever you go. Every single night, as you try to sleep, you will hear something moving around right beneath you. Sometimes the sounds will change, becoming manipulative. They'll sound like a child, telling you they're trapped and begging you to reach your hand under the bed and pull them out. Don't do it. Mr. No warns that it won't be a child that grabs your hand. If you forget to leave the coin, you won't be sleeping for a long, long time. He tells you that you must remember to follow the rules, especially this one. Blackwood does not like selfishness. You share this space with the living and the dead. The dead remember how they are treated. They demand respect. This entity that lives under the bed and mimics a child's voice is a horrifying take on the folklore of Tidymun, a creature from English marshland folklore that often uses deception or pleas for help to lure its victims into danger. The physical proximity and the nocturnal terror are classic elements of a targeted haunting. An eerie fact: hypnic jerks, the sudden, involuntary muscle contractions that occur when falling asleep, are often accompanied by brief, vivid hallucinations, including auditory ones that can be interpreted as a child's voice or movement under the bed. This is the body's natural defense against the brain relaxing too quickly, and the terror it causes is disproportionate to the actual physical event. You try to remain grounded. Is the child's voice an acoustic phenomenon caused by the old plumbing echoing through the vents? And the muddy footprints are the result of poor roof drainage and an actual leak that is only active at night. This skeptical path requires an intricate web of coincidences, but it is a necessary defense against the utter terror Mr. No is describing. He urges you to pity them for how they ended up. Give them the compassion they never got when they were alive. The coin is just a small price to pay. You stand there, feeling the weight of all the rules now: the greeting, the curfew, the avoidance, and the offering. You realize that making it through the summer requires constant vigilance, not just against the spirits, but against your own curiosity and forgetfulness. And you wonder about the ones who got the demon under the bed. You spend the next few days working alongside Mr. No, fixing the crumbling brickwork and cleaning the dark green streaks of mold from the lower halls. Everything he described begins to feel less like a ghost story and more like a set of deeply ingrained operational protocols. One evening, you are patching a leak on the west wing roof just as the sun starts to dip below the hills. You are tired and your mind is elsewhere. You climb down and walk through the empty admin building. You pass the portrait of the inventor. You don't stop. You don't even glance up. You simply walk past it, already thinking about your dinner in the mess hall. The very next morning, you trip on the bottom step of the main staircase. You fall, scraping your knee, and your tool belt flies across the stone floor. There was nothing there. No loose step, no obstacle. You remember Mr. No's words. A kid who forgets to greet the painting might trip on the stairs, even though there's nothing there. It was small, but undeniable. Blackwood had noticed your transgression. Later that day, you go to the small library, one of the few places you actually like. to fetch some old schematics. It's huge, with rolling ladders and the scent of old, musty paper. Your schematic, a heavy thing with a cracked leather cover, is gone. You swear you left it on the second shelf. You search everywhere. Nothing. 3 days later, it reappears, sitting right on top of the old map cabinet, a place you had checked a dozen times. The incidents, while minor, are too precise, too targeted to be simple coincidence. Your internal, skeptical voice is failing. You're beginning to experience the classic mental trap of this environment. Confirmation bias, where every strange event is interpreted as proof of the rules, rather than a natural occurrence. The fear is feeding the phenomenon. This accumulation of small, frustrating misfortunes after breaking a rule is reminiscent of the folklore of the gremlins, mischievous entities traditionally blamed by early 20th century aviators for mechanical failures and small acts of sabotage, always minor, but always targeted at the equipment or the schedule. An eerie fact. Studies on microsleeps and cognitive load show that tasks requiring extreme mental focus, like navigating a constantly flickering, maze-like school, cause short lapses in concentration that can easily lead to tripping or momentary amnesia about where an object was placed. But the coincidence of the trip and the disappearing schematics occurring directly after the forgotten greeting is too much to ignore. You now fully believe Mr. No's assertion. The Academy is alive, it breathes, and it remembers. You are starting to understand why he is so strict. The rules are not suggestions. You make a mental note to always stop and say good evening tonight. You wonder what would have happened if you had forgot the coin in the chapel. The feeling of being watched intensifies. Now that you've had a minor incident, the building itself feels heavier, like the walls are actively listening for your mistakes. The rules are no longer abstract warnings. They are your personal armor. One night, just after 10 p.m., as you are trying to relax, you hear it. From somewhere far in the east end of the building, a faint sound drifts through the thick walls and down the narrow halls. It's music, soft piano and strings. Faint, unmistakable laughter. The ballroom. The ghost party is in full swing. Your heart pounds. You remember Mr. No's warning. Never leave your room between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. This is when the Academy belongs to the others. You are consumed by the curiosity that Mr. No said Blackwood feeds on. You want to know what a party that's been locked for decades sounds like up close. You move toward your door. You tell yourself, I'll just peek out. I won't go near the ballroom. But the moment you reach the handle, the music cuts off. Instantly, the laughter disappears. The house goes completely, deafeningly silent. It's a silence that feels deliberate, like the other residents just realized they had an audience. You remember the red doors, the wet-looking paint. You imagine one materializing right outside your room. You imagine pressing your ear to it and hearing the slow, soft knock. you retreat, locking the door firmly. You are now immersed in a phenomenon known in paranormal research as the silent witness trap, where spectral activity ceases abruptly upon detection, leaving the observer isolated and questioning their own sanity, but confirming that they were intentionally heard, an eerie fact. The feeling of absolute silence, particularly in an isolated area with natural white noise, wind, distant animals, can trigger auditory tinnitus in some individuals. The brain, lacking external sound, generates internal sound to compensate, leading to the perception of non-existent noises or voices. You argue with yourself, was the music just a wind chime or creaking floorboards? And my own fear caused me to misinterpret the sounds and believe they stopped when I moved. This investigative approach is the only thing keeping you from the paranoia that Mr. No warned about, but you also recall the sheer impossible clarity of the music. You stay awake, your eyes staring at the ceiling. You hear only the distant hum of the gas lamps. You realize that the lady, or the red doors, or the servants knocking could be in the hall right now. You won't know unless you break the rule. And you are too afraid to find out. You vow to stay put until 4 a.m. You've been here for several weeks now, and the truth of Blackwood has settled into your bones. The building is not just old, it's ancient. And with that age comes a crushing weight. It's a psychological burden that seeps into the walls and floors, filling the air even though you can't see it. You feel it constantly. You spend an afternoon in the library again, not for schematics, but just to read. You climb the rolling ladder to look at the ceiling mural. It's some kind of twisting shapes, people, and things that might be animals. You catch yourself staring, wondering about the artist. You notice patches that have faded away, but others are still sharp. Deep reds, dark greens, and a black that seems too dark. Even in the faint lamplight, you realize the colors are the same as the dark smears on the basement walls and the wet paint on the forbidden red doors. You read through some of the books, heavy things, older than the country itself, history, old stories, things that keep your mind busy. You piece together the long, strange history of the manor and the inventor, the fire that destroyed the West Wing, the fiancé, the occult, the betrayal. The different versions of the story blur together. You realize it doesn't matter which version is true. They all point to the same thing, a deep, profound disturbance at the core of this place. Mr. No's strict rules are the only thing that creates a predictable pattern in the chaos. He didn't make them up. He just follows them, like everyone who has been here long enough to know better. The overwhelming feeling that the environment is actively hostile and aware, not just haunted, is a psychological state known in parapsychology as perceived sentience, where the haunted location is felt to be a living entity with intent, which aligns perfectly with Mr. No's belief that the Academy breathes and pays attention. An eerie fact. Architectural psychology suggests that mazes of narrow hallways, twisting stairwells, and asymmetrical layouts, like blackwood, can induce a constant, subconscious state of mild anxiety and disorientation, which the brain interprets as something being off or wrong with the environment itself. You consider running away. Wouldn't it be safer to quit and write a paper on the psychological effects of isolated, decaying architecture on the human mind? But the sense of being trapped is real. The outside world barely exists here. You are cut off. You look at the fading mural on the library ceiling. You see twisting shapes that might be something else entirely. And you wonder if the inventor and his fiancée ever truly intended to found a school, or if the entire structure was built as a giant, elegant prison for their endless, violent drama. The summer is drawing to a close, and you are exhausted, not from the physical labor, but from the constant, low-level dread. You followed every rule. You greet the portrait every time you pass it, acknowledging that you are in his house. You haven't left your room after 10 p.m., no matter what whispers you heard outside. You've avoided the east wing entirely. Mr. No finds you cleaning the exterior stonework near the chapel. He tells you this is his final advice, the one that truly separates the survivors from the others. You've heard the stories, the rules, he says gently. Maybe you still think they're just warnings made up to scare the new staff. He sees the doubt, the curiosity in your eyes. He tells you that curiosity is fine, but it's what you do with it that matters. He reiterates the code, his voice soft but solemn. Say good evening to the portrait. Stay in your room during the witching hours, no matter what. If you see the lady, keep your eyes down. Avoid the red doors. And if the candles are lit in the chapel, leave a coin. Think of it as rent, he whispers. A small price to pay for sleeping safe. Then he delivers the final, chilling caution. The hardest part. Blackwood wants you to forget these rules. It will make you feel safe. You'll believe the stories were just for fun, just folklore. You'll start to believe it's all in your head. That's when it gets you, when you let your guard down. The constant vigilance wears you down until you are too tired to care. That is the Academy's greatest weapon, this slow, psychological erosion of caution is a tactic often employed in the real-world phenomena of haunted residue, where repeated exposure to non-violent, low-level activity causes the residents to normalize the strangeness, making them psychologically vulnerable to the one major, life-altering event, an eerie fact. Sensory adaptation is a documented psychological phenomenon where prolonged exposure to a stimulus, like the smell of dust or the sound of the flickering gas lamps, causes the nervous system to ignore it, making any sudden change in the environment, the music stopping, the lights going out, exponentially more frightening. You ask the skeptical question one last time, though you already know the answer. Why not just tear the building down? He smiles weakly. He doesn't answer directly. If you listen, if you follow the rules, you'll be fine. Most kids make it through the summer alive. Most of them. He walks away, leaving you by the old, ivy-covered chapel. You look up at the cracked stone. You reach into your pocket and touch the smooth edge of the emergency quarter you always keep there, just in case the candles are lit. You realize that you've done more than just follow the rules. You've adapted to the demands of the dead. You are no longer fully living. You are a resident, just like the others. The summer has ended. You've packed your truck, and you're driving back down the winding road. The trees still crowd the sky, but now they feel less like a prison and more like a curtain that has shielded you from something truly terrible. The silence is no longer oppressive. It is a profound relief. The heavy, watchful feeling in your bones is slowly receding. You look in your rearview mirror, and Blackwood Manor is gone, tucked behind the hills and the thick forest. You will, of course, tell people the stories. You'll laugh and call them campfire tales, but you know the truth of the silver eyes, the endless red doors, and the soft, impossible sound of the wet footprints. You know what it takes to survive in a house that is actively, maliciously alive. You reach into your pocket and feel the quarter. You didn't need to leave it on the altar this summer. You are carrying it with you now. A small, cold reminder of the rent you still owe the dead. You have earned your sleep. End of script. Sleep peacefully if you can.